Have you ever started an RPG and realized after a few hours that you've picked bad skills and built an almost useless and pretty terrible character? Are you anxious when you level up because you can't decide which perk should you pick or avoid? If you don't want to have a problem with this in Starfield, this video is for you.
I'll guide you as best I can.
We'll go through the top 10 worst skills of the game. We face the hardest decisions probably in the first few hours. What kind of character to make, which traits to choose, and which skills to focus on. I will leave the character creation process to you, but I want to help you avoid picking bad skills to make the game more enjoyable. First, I have to make it clear that the usefulness of skills in Starfield depends on the playstyle you choose and the things you want to focus on in the game. If you like to build outposts, you will find different skills useful than someone who wants to be a space pirate or a merciless gunslinger. Some skills are must-haves for someone, but are worthless for another player. Even if we consider these things, there are still some skills with questionable effectiveness, and you might not agree with everything I'll say, but let's see what I find the top 10 worst skills in Starfield for any playthrough. The first skill on the list is boxing. As I said, the usefulness of a skill depends on your build, but I wouldn't advise anyone to play an unarmed character. You can make melee enjoyable with some tweaking, but unarmed is even worse, and there is no reason to go with it right now. The skills that affect melee, including unarmed, are okay. But boxing works only for unarmed attacks, so it's entirely useless. Are there any other skills that work only for unarmed attacks? Yes, and that's the second skill on this list, named Neuro strikes. It gives you a chance to stun NPCs with unarmed attacks. At higher ranks, you also get some EM damage and area of effect, but everything applies here that we said about boxing. It's better to avoid it right now. Perhaps later, Bethesda will make an unarmed build viable. The third and fourth skills I don't find helpful are kind of connected again, like boxing and neurostrikes. One of them is Gastronomy, a tier 1 social skill. It helps you research more recipes and craft better food and drinks. But here is the thing. At the moment, I think using food and drink is a hassle and not worth it at all. For healing, we can all agree that they are pretty bad. Also, there are so many different ones that you can't attach them to 1 or 2 hotkeys to use it effectively. Going through the inventory repeatedly just for healing is annoying. Crafting lots of similar ones could help with this, but then you have to use the same type over and over again, without their various extra benefits. According to the latest patch notes, Bethesda will implement an eat button for food in an upcoming patch. It might be somewhat easier to use them after that. Yet, this isn't the only reason not to spend valuable skill points on gastronomy. There are more than enough heart pluses, med packs, trauma packs, and emergency kits in the game to find or buy, and these already heal you effectively without spending a single skill point. They are also easy to use if you assign them to a hotkey. If you want to make them even more effective, you can do that in many ways. The medicine skill is an obvious choice since it upgrades their healing attributes. The other might not be obvious at first glance, but it also helps these healing items restore more health, and it is wellness. It's already useful because it increases your maximum health. It also has a secondary effect since med packs and similar items heal you in percentages of your max health. The bigger the health, the stronger the healing effect. You can still use food for the extra benefits like faster oxygen recovery, bonus XP, etc. But I wouldn't spend skills for it. That's why the fourth skill I wouldn't touch is nutrition. It makes food and drinks more effective, but whatever. In Starfield, fasting is the way, especially if you got bored of the compliments of the adoring fan.
I like tea, and I like worshipping the ground you walk on.
And have a playthrough with the strict personal trainer trait.
No food, no water. Until next time, stop fucking eating, fatty!
The following 3 skills I find useless relate to afflictions, injuries, and infections. These are all Tier 2 and Tier 3 physical skills, namely environmental conditioning, decontamination, and cellular regeneration. Environmental conditioning gives you some resistance, but you can get some from spacesuits anyway. And even if an affliction shows up, you can cure it. You'll find tons of first aid items, and doctors can help you cure afflictions too. Decontamination and cellular regeneration can help you recover naturally from infections and injuries, but it's the same thing as with environmental conditioning. It's just not worth spending skill points on problems you can solve some other way. If an affliction shows up, you simply use the first aid item that treats it. I never had a big problem with afflictions in Starfield, and I rarely bought any first aid items. Somehow, I always had some that I picked up naturally while playing. If I have to name the worst combat skill, that would be Incapacitation, so that's our number 8 on this list. It increases your damage with electromagnetic weapons. Sounds good, but there are 2 problems with this. First, there aren't too many electromagnetic weapons in the game. I've seen maybe 2. Second, you can't damage your opponents with EM weapons. You can only make them unconscious. They can be helpful during some stealth missions where the non-lethal ways are preferred, or maybe for a pacifist playthrough, but that still doesn't justify spending precious skill points on Incapacitation. The 9th skill on the list is Robotics. It is a Tier 3 tech skill that helps you deal more damage to turrets and robots and force them to stop fighting against you. They even obey your commands at max level. It sounds good, right? Well, not really. Even though you'll face a lot of turrets and robots while playing the game, you can use a nearby terminal to deactivate them or update their friend or foe settings. This is where it's different than some social skills, because there are no other ways than those if you want to influence humans or aliens. With robots and turrets, you have. The bonus damage also isn't worth it because there are far better combat skills for a more universal damage increase. The final skill on this list is a little bit sad. It's a Tier 4 physical skill called Rejuvenation. It doesn't look bad, but so many people report it is bugged and not working as intended on its last 2 levels that it's not worth it until Bethesda fixes it. The skill regenerates your health outside of combat, and on ranks 3 and 4 even in combat, but for some reason that's not the case. You could say it's worth it for the first 2 levels, but it's much easier to use first aid items for healing instead of waiting. If you upgraded medicine and wellness before, it's even less useful because you can already heal yourself instantly. Always take into consideration what interests you in the game, because that helps a lot in building your character. With these 10 skills, however, I can't find a good reason for anyone to pick them instead of much better options. If you know how these skills can be practical in different builds, or if you can come up with situations when they can come in handy, I would like to hear it. Feel free to comment if you agree or disagree with the list, and tell me the reason behind it. We might learn new things together, because the game doesn't explain everything. So this is my list of the top 10 worst skills in Starfield. I've tried to consider different kinds of playstyles, people who love to build outposts, research and upgrade things, etc., and think about what skills are useless inherently during any kind of playthrough. If you focus on combat and don't care, for example, about outposts at all, you'll naturally find some other skills pointless too, that are not on this list. I would also like to see your top 10 worst skills list in general, or for your particular playthrough. If you have any questions about the video and the skills, don't hold back. I'll try to answer them in the comments, and see you soon in the next video.